my name is Michael Holmstrom, and today I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey. We're going to take a journey through innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship. And we're also going to explore the slightly controversial topic of that the world doesn't need more ideas. Now, our story starts in a country far, far away, in this case, Sweden. I was brought up in Sweden, where basically the winters were extremely long and the summers were extremely short. Now, in this place where I first experienced innovation, creativity, because during those very long winter nights, I spent my time right in here. This was my fallback place. This was my happy place, the garage. I tinkered with things, I failed a lot, but I learned extremely fast. This environment here allowed me to learn from other people as well. I learned that failure was part of the process of succeeding. And I learned a lot by doing. I did a lot of magic stuff in this garage. Now, I'm also one of those weird kids who very early on knew that I was going to become an engineer. I've got some vivid memories of myself building a massive tree cutting tool out of my dad's whippersnipper in grade 3. And this thing was amazing. It cut trees about that thick. Don't you worry about that. To my mum's great fear, and I guess anger to some degree, I got my first push bike and I pulled it apart and I turned it into an electric bike because it went a lot faster. So I learned a lot by doing in this space. And when we talk about innovation, entrepreneurship today, I'm going to bring you back into this environment that I was in, because in many ways that environment shaped me who I am today, and I use that with my students to teach them about innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship. Now, I said to you that I want to become an engineer. Now, engineer for me was a very, very big word. I'm coming from a very small town in Sweden. I'm the first person in my family who ever considered going to university. To me, university was meant for people that wasn't like me. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't feel like I was smart enough to do the big university thing. But I gathered my strengths and my credentials that I had, and I applied. And I got into university, which was a massive thing for me. Along that journey to then become entrepreneurial and innovative later in my life. Now, at the same time, I watched a show called The Flying Doctor Service on TV in Sweden. This was big. If you haven't watched that series, go and look it up. It is amazing. And the reason why it was so amazing to me was because in that series, imagine me, I'm sitting in a little town now in Sweden, there's snow outside, negative 20 degrees, and watching this thing on TV was absolutely remarkable. There was red dust, there were outback scenes, there were 4X bar mats, and I thought it was the best thing I ever seen. So I figured, look, I want to check that out. So I took that one step further. I went down to Australia and absolutely loved Australia. I finished my degree down here and was lucky enough really early on to get involved with startups and business. And coming out of university, every engineer, broad brushstroke, yes, but every engineer, they think they got all the skills in the world they need. An engineer think we have the answers before even you ask the question. It's just the way we are wired in our heads. But through this process of traveling the world, building businesses now, I learned there's a lot more to success, innovation, entrepreneurship than just a degree. Being able to relate to people, being able to understand different kinds of cultures, right? Very, very important. And I learned that through my journey by building some great businesses and some horrible businesses as well. Now, I've also been very fortunate to do mentoring for students in secondary school, business people, and amazing people coming out of universities all across the country. And there's a few things here that I've picked up along the way. We all want to be innovative. You sit in a job interview, and the first question you get is that, how can you be innovative for my business? How can you create value for what we do? And innovation is quite a hard thing to do. We all want to become innovative and do all this creative stuff, but how do we make this happen? And most importantly, what is keeping us away from not being innovative? There's two key things that I've learned along my own journey from where I am today. The first thing is the fear of failure. Now, are these guys laughing with you or laughing at you? That guy to the left is having a red hot crack at you right there, all right? Trust me. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. We don't like that. Failure, we get taught in school, It is not a good thing to do. Failure is not something we really want to experience. The next thing is rejection. As kids, we might not experience rejection if we're lucky. We then we grow up, we get our first boyfriend, girlfriend, and the first breakup happens. And it's a very weird feeling once again. We don't like rejection. But these two things are really important to succeed in life and also succeed in business. If you ever met a really good salesperson, they love rejection. They get rejected 100 times in one day, and the one sale they make, they go, wow, that was the best day in my life. I don't know how they got there, but that is a great example of how you overcome those things to become extremely successful. Now, another example of this are these two guys in the cardboard box. These guys are my two sons, Ari and Axel, and these guys know failure. They know how to innovate because they have to. They learn how to walk, they learn how to talk, they learn everything by trial and error, and they learn extremely fast. When we do our innovation programs all around the country and around the world, it's a really easy thing to do a primary school innovation program. It is very hard to do an innovation program in a boardroom. Because in the boardroom, we built up all these fears for rejection and failure, and we don't want to try things. We get scared of doing that. Those two guys in that box, they're awesome. They're not afraid, and we can learn a lot from these guys how to become innovative. Now, through my journeys in life, I've been very lucky to also work with kids from all walks of life. I work with kids from foster care situations. These guys are mentally, physically abused from a very early age, and they don't like people for very good reasons. We ran a 3-day innovation class with these guys, and on the first day, they walked in with their hoodies down, didn't look at me, none of the teachers, and they said nothing. Now, what we did in that room, in that class, we created the same environment that I had in that small garage in Sweden, which was based on mutual respect, no fear of failure, and an environment where they're allowed to do things, learning by doing, and on their own terms. So after day 2, the hoodies came off, they started talking, and they started engaging with each other. And most importantly, created these massive, amazing things just because of the environment. Not because we brought in expensive tools and stuff for them to use, purely because of the environment. Now, the next example is a 5-day innovation class in a secondary school. On the first day of the class, this mum turns up with her daughter, and she very carefully walks up and says, "Hey, Michael, this is me, this is my daughter." And the daughter is standing behind here somewhere. And she says, "Look, my daughter is dyslexic. She's on the spectrum. She's got really big problems of learning, but we like to give this a try." And looking at her daughter, it was very obvious here that mum had created some virtual barriers for her daughter, what she thought she couldn't do and could do. Now, the mum wasn't evil. She's just trying to protect the daughter from the world we're living in and just trying to be a protective parent. After 3 days in this class, her daughter started coming out of a shell and doing things in her own way, but discovering all this stuff that went way beyond her virtual barriers in her head. On the 5th day, her mum walked up to me and said, "Michael, what have you done with my daughter?" And at that point, it wasn't happy thoughts that was flowing through my brain. I went, "What have you done? Sorry." And then a tear started rolling down her mum's cheek. And I went, "Can you please explain?" He said, "Look, my daughter is doing things now she's never been able to do before in her whole life. And now she's doing it. What have you done?" And the only thing we did was to provide the same environment as that shed back in Sweden, based on failing fast, learning by doing, and letting kids be kids without those blockers in their minds. Now, the controversial topic about we don't need more ideas. What I mean by this is this. I meet some amazing people every single day through mentoring, through business, through classes, and they all have great ideas. All you got to do is to go to an Australian barbecue. Everyone around the barbecue's got amazing ideas. Yeah? What we need are kids and adults who can transform those amazing ideas into value. And by doing that, we can solve the problems of today, but also solve massive problems of tomorrow. I'm going to leave you with this slide. I'm going to give you a challenge. Tomorrow morning, I want you to pick a scenario where you deliberately will fail, where you deliberately might get rejected. And I want you to step back when that happens and embrace that feeling and overcome those two fears. Because by doing that, you're on your first step to taking that journey towards innovation, creativity, and success in your own life just by overcoming those virtual barriers. Thank you very much.